Why do you think cricket and strength and conditioning has a weird relationship?
It is very weird, to be honest. Yeah. I think they're strange bedfellows because it's only happened in the last, say, 20 years where that relationship is come in. So I started back, with Somerset in 2000. Started working with the second team there, doing fitness and sports therapy. The whole sort of unit, the team was, Dermot Reeve was the head coach. Kev Shine was the first team coach. Julian White was the second team coach. Then there was Big Daz Vaness was they called him the physio, but he'd take care of physio in fitness. And then I was with the second team. So that was the whole unit. So there was no assigned role S&C there. In Somerset, actually, we were the first ones to change everything because we brought in Andy Hurry, I think in my first or second year, who came in as a fitness coach. And I don't think any other teams had a fitness coach then. So, we suddenly had 3 people who knew about the fitness side. We were the first team to go to 12-month contracts. Well, I don't think there were contracts, but everyone was basically in from end of October. But it was a strange process because cricketers then were used to playing all season and then working in the off season. They go and be estate agents or train to be lawyers and all sorts of things. And then around February time, they'd start doing a couple of gym sessions and maybe a net. And then the season would hit, I think around 1st of April, they would all be in full time. That change, it was almost like rugby in 95 after the World Cup where that went professional. It was almost like that, but slower, I think, all the way through the noughties. And there was just probably a bit of a push and pull, really, because I think players knew that fitness was important, but a lot of them didn't want to do it. And then what happened was a lot of ex-rugby S&Cs around sort of 2005, 6, 7 came into cricket. And unfortunately, what we saw, instead of it helping, almost more injuries, bigger issues for players. And I think there's been a suspicion and a worry about that since, which is probably why, go back to your question, that people it's not a great relationship.
That was actually, I was a part of that. I was a part of that movement, essentially, which was I was 15 years old. My first strength and conditioning coach that I'd managed to get hold of had come from Northampton Rugby.
Okay, yeah.
And then I remember the first thing was you need to get big, strong, robust. The conversations were your joints as a bowler are going to be really under threat throughout your career. So we need to strengthen muscles in order to take a lot of pressure off them. So I went through, as a 15-year-old, a huge hypertrophy phase, just pure gain, pure repetition over and over again. And then I gained, I think I got to eventually after a lot of that, about 94 kilos. And I was heavy. I was definitely bulked. I wasn't lean. That wasn't a massively lean 94. And then probably subsequently 2 patellar tendonitis injuries. I had multiple tears in both quads, hamstrings on both sides. My back injuries definitely weren't really related to my weight, but more technical, I'd maybe say, but we could probably get into stuff like that. But I would definitely attribute a lot of that lower limb injury down to the fact that I just bulked up. I got really heavy. And then you actually saw it in the whole cricket community. You had big guys like Chris Tremlett, Bresnan, Flintoff, all guys who were heavy guys, tall, strong, weighed a lot, got really injured. We actually had Ryan Harris come to Sussex, and Ryan Harris was a bit of a phenom because he was a huge guy, could bowl really quick off a very short run-up. But then a lot of the coaches looked at him and went, well, you all kind of need to be his size and strength. And so we all were just continuously told to bulk up. So that was around about that period, I think. It was sort of between 2005, 2010 was where this introduction of S&C really started to escalate, and a lot of it was around get heavy, get strong, be robust. Like, you heard that word robust all the time. I think many of us paid the price with some injuries sort of down the line.
Yeah, I mean, mate, the issue we have is there was such a reductionist approach to it. Well, if you get stronger, it's going to help you join. It was just bullshit. And it was just like, there was no real thought behind it. And a lot of the issue we had was back in early 2000s, I think it was 2000, there was a paper that came out, and they'd been looking at sprinters, and they'd been trying to work out why were the sprinters so, and they came to the conclusion it was just due to their strength. So then everything in sport went, right, we just got to get strong. The same people who did the paper in 2000 did one in 2003 or 4, and they said, we got this wrong. There's a lot more that goes into it. What happened was the fact that some of them were also strong, so it was correlation, not causation. A lot of people just kept running with it. Because here's the thing, mate. It's fucking easy to get someone strong. It's the easiest thing in the world. You progressively overload them with a bar, and then you can, as an S&C coach, you can go to your coach and say, right, I just got Lewis from back squatting 80 kilogram to 140. Give me a pat on the back. And I go, great. Doesn't matter if you're injured. It doesn't mean a thing. And the trouble is, for me, cricket is still in this cycle where we got S&Cs just trying to load because it makes them look like they're doing their job, but the bowlers are injured. Now, my time, I did lots of things wrong. In 22 years, made lots of mistakes. But when I look back, the key thing for me was, are the bowlers or players I'm working with, are they fit to play the game? That's it. That's where the accountability should sort of lie with an S&C for me. Because if someone's getting like you just said, you had loads of tendon issues, muscular issues, that's a conditioning problem. Now, the trouble is, like I said, we've got no accountability, but we've also got coaches saying, you're a fast bowler, you're going to get injured, which is crazy. Now, we know it's hard. Fast bowling's a hard thing to do, but we're making it even harder because we're not preparing the body. We're actively doing almost the opposite to what we need. And that's why we're in this situation where it's not really moved on. I mean, the only thing that's moved on is the technology. Every fucker's doing GPS and talking about load. They're not looking at how is Lewis Hatchett as a bowler, how is he moving? What does he need? How is his hip internal rotation? When his co-contraction hits the floor, what's happening around the ankles? All these sorts of things. Where's his stiffness? Has he got enough of the right sort of stiffness? Has he got the right movement? There's none of this taking place. We're still just, what's your 2K? How high can you jump? How quick can you sprint? And then if you're not running the 2K quick enough, they give you more running. If you're not sprinting quick enough, we'll give you more sprinting. Now, I always go back to thinking about a car. You wouldn't take your car into a garage because the engine was smoking. And they say, well, just put your foot down a bit more. You'd ask a few questions saying, hang on, we've got to look at the end, look at something. Don't just tell me to go harder or get stronger. But with the body, we sort of accept it. And the crazy thing is, mate, I'm hearing stories of parents taking their kids to big counties to go on the academy, and the director of cricket saying they're probably going to get a stress fracture. I mean, just think of that for a second. They're telling you your son or daughter's going to get a broken back, and they're just accepting it. And to me, that's when we've crossed the line and we think, this is all gone now. This is madness.
What do you think we're missing? What do you think is a part of that they're missing? Is there something around flexibility that you don't think is being added in there because of the...
Well, it's basically, for me, it's motor control, which is how you can control your own body, and that plays into stability and mobility. When you put those things together and you can control the body well, you understand it's got the good movement where we need it to. So thoracic, hips, ankles, are they moving well? Have we got good control through the core and the glutes, knees? Is the scapula working? If those things we're understanding and understanding how they're working, and we're actually assessing if they're working, then we'll know more about the individual. Even when we see some of them are now doing, they call it movement testing, but they'll put you in a lunge or a squat position, And guess what they do if you actually can complete it? You do more of it. So they don't go back further and say, right, so if he can't get into a squat, the why, it's if we do more squats, I even heard one, and this really disturbed me, was a very, very, very high up person within the ECB saying, if we just load the bar on their back, that will help their hip mobility when they're squatting. And I was just like, what are we doing? And that's almost the common thoughts through the whole of cricket. If you talk to bowling coaches, if you talk to S&Cs, even physios, they'll just say, well, just go get stronger. And that's the biggest issue more than anything, is we're blanketing strength, saying that's going to cure everything. Now, this isn't me saying I hate strength, because I don't, but we're putting it onto a system which is not ready for it. That's the fundamental issue. If we're moving well and everything's working well, of course we add the strength. Of course we want to, but that's only in the right way onto a system which is working well. And what we don't really do is what you went through, is hypertrophy. Why we'd want to do that, I do not know. It's crazy, but it's still happening, because like I said, it's easy to do, and it's easy for some clown who's just finished a 3-year degree, and they come in with their MacBook and their coffee and their beard, and they'll say, right, I know what to do now. You haven't got a clue. It's a trouble.
Have you come across Mike Israetel online?
I haven't, I don't think, no.
Dr. Mike Israetel, he's definitely well worth a follow, but he is a doctor in, I think it's definitely exercise physiology, but he has created his company RP Strength, and Renaissance Periodization is his YouTube channel. But so I follow him at the moment because I am actually back into a hypertrophy phase. So I'm just going through I'm going all through that again. But interestingly, a lot of the research showing is that you don't have to go to the standard 6 reps or 8 reps. You can go up to anything up to 30 reps, and then you work through your 3 to 0 reps in reserve when you're working. But one of the best things about him is he's all about full range of movement. Because again, the research has shown that if you want to gain muscle, you have to go through that full range of movement. But as I've gone through this process, I have gone from squatting anywhere between 120 to 140 to now loading the bar with 80 to 90 kilos, doing 15 reps, but with proper movement, like real depth. And these are just they're very simple, basic, isolate hypertrophy exercises, but looking at it and just the system in which I'm doing it, using full range of motion, getting into some really deep movement, and then building resiliency around those movements. I liken it to yoga. When you get into certain positions and you are holding those positions through really deep full range of movements, and it is the change in the feel of the body and the ability to just drop into a squat, feel no issues like knees, back, anything like that, be absolutely okay. I look at it and go, that's kind of what I was missing, rather than going sort of quarter ranges or half ranges, loading it up to like 150, thinking you're the absolute man because you're moving massive amounts of weight. Now, there is obviously there's probably a conversation to be had about strength. So like how much of it is strength, because at the moment it is hypertrophy. It's just about size and building. But I just think of the actual process of going through that range of movement and going through full ranges is something that, especially if you just go into a standard gym, people don't want to do, because it's like, it's not the sexy looking thing. It doesn't make sense in their eyes to not load the bar up as much as they can. So yeah, I think he's definitely worth a follow. He's hilarious to follow. But from my experience now, getting that full range of movement into your weights, especially, game changer.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's no real bad exercises. There's just bad execution or a poor prescription. Because one of the big exercises that I rally against for a lot of fast bowlers, particularly if they've had an issue with their backs, is a back squat. We've got the axle loading through the spine. Actually, the position of the bar a lot of times is pretty horrendous. Then we've got the control element when they're coming down and they're flaring the ribs. They're going into extension patterns at the low back, which is exactly what happens with stress fractures. Their pelvis is all over the shop. They tend to shoot off left or right. So they might have 60 or 70% through one side. And then, like you said, they're gritting their teeth and trying to get through it. That's no good for a fast bowler. That's no good. You know, like I said, if I saw a bowler who could say like someone like the Rhino, he could probably get in squat 150 straight down, straight up, great technique, happy days. You know, I wouldn't then go in and say you need to stop back squatting. It would be, okay, what's stopping you? And the issue I have, and this fucking drove me mad when I used to have bowlers go with England, they'd come back with fucking lifting shoes. And I'd be like, why have they given you those? Because we can't get the range. Why aren't we working on the range then? You know, why are we trying to put things in to sort of like falsely get into the positions which the body's not able to? It's like, no, we're going to shoehorn this in. You know, and that happens with training, that happens with bowling. When you have a bowling coach saying, right, you need to have a brace front leg. So they'll do all these exercises to try and get a brace front leg without looking at the reasons why that isn't happened naturally. And that's the key thing. We'll always go back to the same thing for me. No one's looking at the reasons that are stopping the positions from happening. And we're pushing through it and we're getting injuries time after time. So again, you know, the players are the ones who always miss out.
There's always a conversation in cricket between old school, new school. So always, you hear it now, I constantly hear it of old guys saying, we never got in the gym, we just bowled and bowled and bowled, and we didn't get as many injuries as they're now. When you hear someone saying that, what is your response?
See, it's difficult actually, because I'm on the fence with it. I would say if the training was good now, I'd say this would have helped a lot of people. You know, I remember the stories of Ian Botham when he was at Worcester. One of the years he was in a back brace because of a stressy. You know, and there was, you know, a lot of bad injuries. I think the training on the whole is so poor at the moment that it's probably creating as many issues as not training. I would almost go as far, and I've said it to a few people when I've seen their programs, I said, you're better off just bowling and not doing that gym program rather than doing the gym and the bowling, because sometimes the gym program is taking them so far away from what they need as a bowler that it's causing issues. So it's a difficult one to say which was the better one. You know, all the stories I heard about the 70s and 80s, the pre-season was just a couple laps, a beer and a pie at lunch, and the same in the afternoon. You think obviously that's not great, but if we're then discriminately just loading the body, and we're seeing players drop out left, right, and centre, which is probably where I get so angry, is when I'm seeing these 15-year-olds on their second stress fracture, and they've been told the same thing. And here's the fucking crazy bit: they're on the same programs as 25, 26-year-olds, and that's the issue. You know, I could throw a blanket over 8 exercises, and 90% of the cricket population are doing these 8 exercises without any prescription. So, you know, it should be better now, and there's so much technology. I think people really aren't understanding bowling, and this goes back to, for me, you've got 3 different factions that are looking after a bowler. You've got a physio, an S&C, and a bowling coach. They need to understand each other's jobs very fucking well. And I don't see S&Cs understanding bowling, and I don't see bowling coaches understanding conditioning. Now, they understand strength training because they're all fucking told, you know, just go and get strong, go and get strong. They don't understand how the body moves. So when they're trying to get a bowler out of lateral flexion, when they're trying to help the bowler's action, they don't understand that all their fucking cones and all their hurdles and all their poles are doing jack shit because they're not changing the actual function, which is how the body's moving. Now, any of us can look like Brett Lee doing a walkthrough. As soon as you're in a match situation, that's gone. That's gone. So for me, when I've got bowlers who are coming back from injury, they don't bowl unless they're ready to bowl at 70%, because there's fuck all correlation between walkthroughs and bowling. You might as well go and do ballet. You know, there's nothing there. So unless you've passed my test to make sure that the markers are there and you're ready to bowl at 70%, you're not bowling. And it goes back to the same thing of, that's why they all need to know each other's jobs. You know, Because at the moment, what we see, you get injured, you get told to rest, the physio comes in with his little band to give you exercises. Once you're pain-free, you get pushed onto the idiot with the barbell. Then they'll say you're stronger, so you must be ready, and you start doing walkthroughs and then bowling, but nothing's changed. The injury's healed because you've given it time. Nothing's changed. And then we're into the whole loop of suddenly re-injury, and you see players who've been out for 18 months come back and then get another injury. And the coaches say, well, that's bowling. It shouldn't be. In my message, I don't even talk to S&Cs and coaches anymore because most of them aren't really interested. I talk to players. For me, the players should be able to say, hang on, something's not right here, and be able to ask the question however they want to do it, in a nice way, in an aggressive way, however, to say, why is this happening to me? And not just get the answer, that's bowling. Because that's bullshit. That's just a complete cop-out.
Where do you lie with long distance running for cricketers? And I know we've spoken a lot about bowlers, but maybe batters are included in this. So yeah, where do you stand with long distance running for cricketers to train?
My opinion has changed on that. I used to be against it, but now I think particularly early off season to get that aerobic base, because most of if you're in a 50 over game, if you're in a 4-day game, there's a lot of sort of low level aerobic capacity going on there. So I think it's as long as the body's capable and like pelvis is working well, low back, hip internal rotate, as long as we've got no issues, fine. And it's particularly if someone enjoys it. If a bowler comes to me and says, listen, even if it's for mental health, I just want to get out and do a 20, 30, 40-minute run twice a week. If it's not doing any harm, I absolutely go for it. So for me, I like to do that. To keep it going almost all year would depend on the individual. But yeah, I'm definitely not against it. Definitely not against it.
Yeah, I just think that was something for me. I did a lot of speed endurance stuff, and that was great. It gives you that incredible ability to recover in between balls. So I think the capacity to fully go and then have 30 seconds to be recovered before you do it again and do that over a full day. Amazing. I think the robustness on your feet for a long period, people forget that if you're playing a 4-day game, you are literally on your feet for 6 hours, and it is I can't describe the joint swelling and the sort of constant aching that you get at the end of a day, especially after 4 days. But the only thing that I found that sort of replicated that and helped you build the sort of resiliency to that was long distance running. I did more marathon training at the end of my career, and I found I just sort of, obviously I wasn't bowling as much, but I looked at it and I went, there's something in this. There's something in just how my joints feel just through the fact that I am repetition after repetition of just long distance running. I thought, I wonder what would have happened if I'd added a little bit of that in when I was playing. But yeah, there's just this.
So I was just saying, that's what a lot of the older players did. I remember when I went to Northlands as lead S&C years and years ago, and the head coach was David Capel, and he used to say to me all the time, just get them running, that's all they need, that's all I used to do, just get them running. And I was out, shut up, mate, at the time. But on the back of it, what I understand now about bowling, is bowling should be about efficiency, an efficient bowling action to be able to get through the action as easy as possible. What it is now is almost people are stopping on back foot and having to force the ball down. So we've moved from almost going through and being efficient like your old West Indies bowlers used to be. You think of Courtney and Courtney coming through the crease, nice and smooth, Mikey Holding, those sorts of things. To now it's like stopping and all this effort at the crease. And now the reason I say it, because if someone, if you were doing longer distances, you have to be pretty efficient to do that with the body, to be able to run well. If you're not efficient, it's going to be hard work and you're not going to be able to stick at it. So if we have that efficiency and you have that, the running, the gait cycle, where, you're landing on the ball of the foot, you're landing with the ball of the foot underneath the hip, you've got, your hips are working nicely, then that plays over. So there's definitely something in it. If we're efficient with the running and we've got a good running technique, that makes bowling and almost coaching the bowling action a lot easier.
Yeah, so we've spoken, like I said, a lot of this is around bowling, but I think just in general, the training of a young cricketer now, are we at risk of trying to protect young cricketers too early from injuries, and in that sense making them less robust?
We're doing the opposite. We're doing the absolute opposite. Honestly, people were looking into exactly how many young players were getting injured on county academies and not getting through and just dropping out of the game. I think there would be amazement in the country, just in this country. You know, and I've on calls with guys at other in other systems in other parts of the world. But yeah, we're not helping them at all. There's too much specialization early on. There's too little doing other sports, other events, or just generally getting out and about. You know, they're more sedentary. They're on their laptops, on their iPads and things like that. And so they're going, and then we're making it worse because then we're not identifying these issues, but then loading them. So like we said, you know, the 14-year-old's got almost the same plan as your 26-year-old opening bowler, opening bat. So everyone sort of crammed into the same thing, and there's always the excuse we haven't got time. You got all the time in the world because now you've got online. You know, we've got 150 clients all throughout the world. We've got time for them all because the systems we've got in place, they can be doing assessments and the videos we can be analyzing. It's not just about that hour period that you might be at the county now. There's so much more time. And if the player's motivated, they'll do the work, but they're all getting shoved down the same thing. Just do this. And it's not good. So you know, batters, bowlers, spinners, keepers, they're all like keepers. The stuff I see online with them talking about, well, because you squat as a keeper, just squat all the time. It's like, is that where we come to? You know, just being, again, that reductionist to say you do this or just do the same thing but with weight? No, because so many keepers, their hips are shot to shit, you know. So we need to make sure we're looking after them, not just load the pattern because they do it in the game. It's just crazy. And we talked earlier about wanting them to play other sports or do other activities. That's key. I know you said about tennis. Fantastic. Get the feet moving. I know a lot of batting coaches love squash and wanted to get players playing squash. For me, a martial arts, a gymnastics, even a dance sort of event helps the body so much and fills in a lot of the gaps that get missed out with cricket. So yeah, a bit long-winded, but we're not helping youngsters at all.
Well, it comes off the back of me experiencing this in not only my own club side, but I went and watched a county pathway game recently and caught up with one of the coaches who was a former coach for me and just a good friend now. And I said to him, what are you seeing? And I thought I would get some answers around technical, tactical stuff in batting, bowling, things like that. And he just unanimously said, they can't move. The fielding, there's no one can pick the ball up. Like, we have got a generation now who really struggle to be coordinated. Like, they don't move as athletically. So what if you've got someone standing in front of you who struggles with this movement, is uncoordinated? What would you be saying to them to say, right, go do this and avoid doing this?
So for me, it would just be about the first thing we'd do is assess them. It says, what are your blockages? You know, where's not working? And again, you know, we go back to a lot of the time the thoracic, so the upper back doesn't move. Now that should move left and right and go forward and back nicely. The hips should move, okay, and the ankles should move. So they're the first three things we'd look at to say, right, so if one of those isn't working, then we need to get working on this. Other than that, it would just be adding a bit more chaos and fun into what they're doing. If we're talking about, you know, 11, 12, 13-year-olds, things that we used to probably play at school, you know, like bulldog and things like that, or things where you have to react to a stimulus. What I see now is, say in a fielding drill, you know what the coach is going to do. He's going to hit the ball at you or he's going to bounce it to you and you catch it. So we can do that. As soon as you add some chaos element, which when you're on the field is total chaos, then we see players not picking up. Now you've probably seen, I speak about someone who was with me at Worcester, Ross Whiteley. The funny thing was they used to talk about him in the field, say, "Oh, he's so fucking quick. He's so quick." He was the second slowest in the 20-meter dash. So it used to really make me laugh because he would just read the game superbly. He would be there and he would be one step ahead and he'd get to the ball and he great motor control. He could throw the ball. He's a strong unit. So his body moved well, but he wasn't. He had an amazing kinetic chain, which we'll probably come on to in a bit. So he could hit the ball miles and also be athletic in the field, but he wasn't quick. But the assessment from the coaches was that he was quick. And that's because he could adapt. And when the chaos stuff came in, he was there. So I think that's where we need to go, to have different drills where they're chasing different balls, having to think, right, if you've got a red ball and a blue ball, you only go after the blue ball and you throw 2 balls and they have to adapt to that. So it'd be things like that. And then having fun stuff like different, almost like gladiators, where they have to jump over things and roll and those different motor and movement patterns, which they're not doing. Just bring those in, because if they can't move, and then we've got some fucking idiot with an ECB tracksuit on saying, all right, well, let's get in the right positions here where we throw and we get the arm there. It doesn't matter. It's not going to help them. The whole body needs to be moving, the kinetic chain. And once we get that working and that coordination level and that stability, which is key at that age, as soon as they're going through their maturation, they lose stability. They go into what we call adolescent gangliness. So they lose that stability, and then they look like bam. We've all seen it, where they're running and their legs and arms are everywhere. So stability is key. If we add stability to everything else and make it fun and go different movements, we'll suddenly see a lot different. Unfortunately, they get to a academy session or whatever it might be, and everything's so drilled. We're doing this. There's no chaos. There's nothing there. Not going to change.
Well, we've got sofas, TVs, phones, gaming, big one, all which are attractions for young people to engage in. And I had a young athlete that I know that games quite a lot, like at a fairly important age of anywhere between 14 to 16, he's been gaming. And he says he's serious about playing the sport, right? And the trade-off, he said, was, well, it's when I connect with my friends, it's when I spend time with them, they're all online, we're playing this game. But then I asked him, how long are you doing it? And it was like into the early hours, right? And I just thought, if you are really serious about what you're doing here, if you're really serious about going hard as an athlete and you want to do this, you have got to take your time on the sofa, your time in front of a TV, your time in front of computer games. You've really got to take this seriously in terms of getting it out of your life because of the damage you are seeing it do to your physical capabilities of being able to move at the thing you love, which if you are to excel in it, you would feel 100x more gratification than just that moment of dopamine on winning some online game or scrolling through, watching that series. I think we've got to be taking these sorts of elements in an athlete's whole holistic life much more seriously and really prescribing people off them rather than saying, okay, yes, recovery is great, but what you're doing and how long you're doing it before you get moving again, I think is so important.
It is massive, man. And the funny thing about that is then a lot of the time when you ask the same youngster, have you done X, Y, and Z? Didn't have time. So how long have you been on your games, or how long have you been on your phone? Probably 6 hours a day. You're telling me you don't have time? Even if they're doing the gaming and they've got their compression boots on, whatever it is, to double up. But it's just that they're not serious, and that's how you tell when someone really is serious, if they're willing to get on and do the work needed. Because the thing is, Lewis, at the moment, if you're one of those few that want to do it, you're going to be so far ahead. You could be an average, talented, and have an amazing career because of the lack of drive for so many at the moment. It's never that far away. It's something I say to a lot of guys when I'm on calls with them, and they say, I'd love to be a pro, and they think it's miles and miles away. And I say, well, it's not. It really isn't. Even if you're 24, 25, there can still be a role in there, because one, so many injuries, and two, so many people not really taking it seriously. So if you do, and you do the right things, you can fly past your peers very quick. Because if they are doing 6 hours a day on gaming and you're the one putting in the work, it might take 1 or 2 years, but at some point they're going to fall and you're going to fly past them.
Yeah, I've said the bar has never been lower right now for a young person's opportunity to make it in sport. You're seeing, whether it's in the Olympics or on any sport, that yes, records are being broken, but the next sort of generation coming through, like getting into the sport and getting into that elite field, even if you're just looking at it from a pure mindset point of view, right? Just all you have to do is be that little bit more confident, deal with your anxiety a little bit more. You have to have a little bit more drive, a little bit more motivation, be able to withdraw from the distractions, to have a little bit more compassion for yourself, a little bit more empathy, and you will fly. And I'm not talking loads. I'm not talking you have to be some saint. It's just a little bit more and you will fly ahead of everyone else. And not only that, like if we talk about removing these distractions of gaming and things like that, just the pure mental strength that you build from pulling away from those distractions, that will build something about you, qualities in you as a character that other people won't have. And then when it comes to on the field, you've earned the right to stay in a pressurized situation that little bit longer, go through a gritty situation and hold out for that little bit longer compared to the other guy, because there's chances are the person you're either coming up against or those around you haven't done that. So huge opportunity available for people. Right, I want to try something with you, which is some fundamentals. And I know there's going to be a fair, probably, sphere of this, but I want to see if you were to have 5 exercises for a batter that you could have for the rest of your life, what would they be? We'll do bowler, but what are 5 exercises, fundamentals, that you would take with you to your grave that every batter should be doing in cricket?
Obviously, I'd always go back to first assessment to see where they are. But for batting, exactly the same as the bowling, it's a kinetic chain working. We spoke about Ross Whiteley a little bit earlier. When he would hit a 6 and you saw his back hip come through, his pelvis square up, he had the A with the feet, his arms came through beautifully, and the ball would go miles. And so it would be about nailing that kinetic chain. And once we've done that, it would be about just adding stability around the body and power to it. So a med ball hip toss, a med ball chest pass, thoracic rotations, making sure they're working, hip internal rotation, make sure that's working. And then I'm going to cheat with the last one and just say isometrics. Isometrics through the body.
What would they be around?
To be honest, like whole body isometric, to have a front and foot contact isometric hold like we do for bowlers. So I've known Steph Jones for years, and he brought in a lot about isometrics, and they're fantastic. So it would even be an isometric around the low part of the swing to actually overload that, so that then the swing can come through more. Those sort of movements would be key for me if I had to take them to my grave, with a med ball through the movement patterns to help that power development. But, it helps with everything, that coordination. Once that coordination's there, then, it's absolutely key. And then you can pretty much do what you want.
So it's a lot of stuff there that's mainly power, movement-based. There's nothing there that's gym-based, nothing there about getting strong. It's moving your body in a way that's more efficient.
So, like I said earlier, I love strength, but if I had to do anything, it'd be that. Because, we would have both seen batters who couldn't lift a barbell can smack the ball miles and miles and miles. And coaches would always say he needs to get strong because he needs to hit it further. Then I'd look at these tiny, that, like I said, look like bean poles. Couldn't lift a thing, and they'd hit it miles. We're looking in the wrong places. So if that chain is working, I know that player is going to be efficient at what they're doing. And I probably always come back to that word again, efficiency. And once they've got that, happy days. I wouldn't waste time. If I only have 5 exercises, I wouldn't waste time on too much weights.
Right. And for bowlers, 5 exercises that you would have for the rest of your life for bowlers.
Oh, it's harder for bowlers because we want the isometrics, like I said, what Steph brought in. So isometrics, and then I've been looking at different fascia-led type exercises. So I've been working with something called the Viper, VIPR lately, which allows you to take the body through a whole range of movement. So that, if you are on a pitch which isn't great and you land and you slip it back for contact and you might sort of twist or just go into out of the normal range, the tissues have been resilient already to it. So we're not going to get that much of an issue. The body's ready for it. So I love using the Viper for a lot of different motor patterns. And like I said, getting out of normal range. Mediballs, I would use Mediball slams for sort of generic. I would use Are you using Medball slams?
Medball slams, are you using those in replicating the movements such as your bowling action? So we did a lot of things where you would just kind of use it either linearly or laterally, and then there's also other ones where we would do like one-legged, so almost on your back contact leg, and then some on your front contact leg. Yeah, so medball slams, how are you actually going about those?
Yeah, so you either use them globally, which is more activation. So you've got your slams, your oblique slams, your grannies, your hip tosses, that sort of thing. And then you take it down, and then you can be working real fundamentals around the action. So you can be working a back foot contact and your partner's throwing it to you and you're catching and holding at the top, or you can be working a front foot contact, mediball slam, or you can be double back foot hop over to front foot throw. So, and that's the most dialed in we can get to bowling in a drill would be that, with a 2K ball, running in, hopping, throwing it, and trying to really get into your action. And that would be the closest. So that would probably be one. And then definitely isometrics. I'm not sure.
I've got you at 3. I've got isometrics, right, bit of Viper, the fascia of medball slam. So I'm going to give me 2 more.
Do you know what? I would say vibration plate work. The vibration to help the fascia. So the fascia, basically, it's almost like an internal wetsuit, which covers the muscle and tendons and bones and everything. And it should flow and it should slide nicely. But the way we're treating our bodies, it gets really junked up. So imagine you've just made a protein shake and you leave it for 2 days. It'd be like cement. When you get on a vibration platform, it gets that moving again, and that allows everything to flow. So it's something we've got at the unit, and the players that come here, they absolutely love it because they feel amazing on it. So once we've got the fascia flowing and moving, then the other stuff we do, like the mediballs, the isometrics, and the Viper work, fit into place more because the body's working. So I would say vibration work, definitely. And then on top of that, I would say the last one, aqua bag work for reactive core. Okay, because I love it. You're doing different positions, and as the body stops, the water keeps going. So you have to rehold and to reposition yourself to accept that, and exactly the same as bowling. When we're down, you want the core to be on and everywhere to be on to help the body. And that's what aqua bags do really well. So I know I've cheated a bit. I've said aqua bags, that covers so much. Mediballs, Viper, Vibro platforms.
Well, I think if anything, it's quite refreshing to know that these that you've listed are not. I was half expecting you to go right back squat, like lunges, like get into some form of core strengthening. Do you know what I mean? And actually, all of this is movement based first, and opening up the body. Even the vibration plate. I know there's been some. I spoke to Adam Meekins on the podcast before, and we spoke about a lot of things that were seen as treatments and therapeutics to help athletes in certain areas of their games, and they weren't actually. For example, the vibration plate might activate your body better to start doing the med ball slams, to start doing your other work. But it isn't necessarily if you stand on a vibration plate that you're suddenly just going to completely change and form yourself into a new athlete. It's something to, if it works for you as an individual, get you to activate this other part of your training. But yeah, most interestingly, nothing about anything you've said there is in the gym, moving some iron around.
No, because, and what I'd say to anyone who's listening, if you find yourself straight in the cricket and whoever you're working with is told you, right, just go and do this, and you find yourself lifting and they've not looked at how you move, ask a question. Because why are you doing that? If you can't move and you're lifting, what are you trying to strengthen? Because strengthening won't cover up a dysfunction. Once, like I say again, we're moving well, we add strength and we add power, of course, so we want to, but we're adding strength and power to something which isn't working, which is killing actions, making injuries, and fucking up cricketers.
What would you say are your best piece of advice for in-season and off-season training? Always hear the difference between and managing those two well, especially the in-season, quite difficult. So yeah, in-season and off-season, what should people be doing?
So the biggest thing with in-season is people stop training, which is a killer. Unless you're a test player and you're playing a test every week, and you've got 5 days a week, even then you still want to be doing some form of training. But if you're playing at the weekend and you're like, well, I can't train because it hurts, you're doing the wrong training. You've got to be training to help support the bowling. And then in the off season, the biggest issue I see is not bowling enough. If you're not recovering from an injury and your body's in a good spot, you need to be doing some form of bowling type work from November. We need to be loading the body. We need to be getting that robustness that we spoke about earlier in the body, so the spine's used to it, the body's used to it. So by the time the season gets here, you're not thinking about workloads, because chronically you've probably been around 15 to 20 since Christmas. When the season gets here, it means it's a piece of piss. We're not suddenly getting to mid-March and April thinking, shit, I'm only on 5 overs a week, I need to get that up to 25. It's that chronic workload for me. When we're in that realm, brilliant. We're there. We know we've cracked it with a player when they're chronically doing 20 overs a week, no issues, body's working well. Happy days. So yeah, that's the in-season, out-of-season biggest things, I think.
The process I used to go through was, again, off-season was build a lot of strength up, then it was make it specific, then get powerful, introduce workloads as you were going in. That's a professional setup, right? That's having come off maybe a season of, 500 overs. You've put X amount of, you just genuinely need to let the body decompress for a little bit. I'd probably argue there's an element that you could do a bit of active rest in there. So I think on my time, again, I would have used my off season to do some light, very, very light zone 2 long distance running that was low impact, especially just with what we know about long distance endurance athletes now, and sort of the minimal impact you have to have on the body through doing extended periods of exercise, but the benefits you get from a endurance aerobic capacity is quite interesting. So I'd have for me, I think that's one thing that I would have done differently in my off season, is earlier on, just especially if whilst you're resting, is just doing some real low, because zone 2 is so slow. I think people just think of zone 2. So everything I did when I was running, it was so fast and it was so intense. And yes, it got you moving quick and you got you powerful, but like there was a bit of aerobic capacity that I think could have been brought out as well. So it's all about the yo-yo test at the end, wasn't it? So
people used to fucking train to pass the yo-yo test.
Yeah, I was in that. I was there. I was in that for sure. Yeah, I was using it as a form of training and then thinking, yep, okay, cool. That's going to make me look like I'm a much better athlete and cricketer, and that's going to build my stock. And yeah, I do that differently now.
Mate, the fitness testing for me was one of the big things where I was like, the coaches were so dialed in on it, and it blinded them to a lot of other things, you know, because they were so like watching, oh, what's he done on that test? Coaches were yo-yo in body fat. No other test they gave a shit about, really. That it was just those two, and it's crazy how much they didn't care about the rest. But if someone wasn't passing them, like, oh, they're not fit.
Would you test athletes now? Would you do a different set of tests
So yeah,
to look at what makes a fit cricketer?
Yeah, I mean, one of our things is assess, don't guess. So we look at everything. The first thing we do with the player is assess their movement capabilities. So that's all through the body. Like I said, cervical, thoracic, scapular, core, glutes, hip and tunnel rotation, ankle dorsiflexion. We're looking at how they move. We're just working with some other technology now to look at more output. So velocity on their half kneel and bowling, velocity on mediball throws, ground contact time velocity, in power, RSI, in some isometrics as well. But it's more really centered around what we think really helps them put on pace and stay robust, rather than the generic yo-yo, 2K, sprint, counter movement jump, and that sort of thing. So yeah, now absolutely testing's crucial, because again, if you're not testing, what's the program based on? Guesswork. And that's the issue.
Ross, I've loved this. Where is the best place to send people to follow more of your work, maybe get involved in some of your programs? Yeah, where should we be sending people?
So cricketstrength.com, you can go there, or we're pretty active on Instagram, which is just Cricket Strength. You could always find me on there. We answer lots of questions. We interact a lot, because like I said, for me, it's about really trying to get the players just asking questions when they're given the same crap strength exercises, to say, why am I doing the same exercise as a left arm seamer as the right arm off spinner, or the left arm seamer is the opening bat? Because if you are doing it, you definitely need to ask some questions. But yeah, Cricket Strength, and you find us most places, YouTube as well.
Ross, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. Really, really appreciate it.
Pleasure, bud.
If you enjoyed that episode with Ross, then we've created a playlist for the best place for you to get started of all the best episodes we've collated and put in one place. All you got to do is click right here. Go on. Go. Now.